You're listening to the Run the Riot podcast, where we talk about all things ultra running. I'm your host, David Terrio, and man, I'm pumped that you are here. Let's see what we can get into today. All right. Today on the Run the Riot podcast, we've got Andrea Carter and Devin Nelson, and we're going to talk about some High Lonesome fun. How you guys doing?
What's up, dude?
Oh man, it's good. I'm walking without a limp now, so life is good.
You didn't run far enough.
Oh, hey now, hey. So before you popped on, Devin, I was telling Andrea it'll be fun. I was telling somebody today that we're gonna talk about the race that we did, and we're gonna have a lady who did awesome. We got my bro who did awesome, and me who didn't finish. So it'll be good. It'll be fun. Well, so for everybody listening, Devin, you've been on the podcast before. Do you remember what episode? I guess I should have looked up and saw what episode it was.
It was a year and a half ago. It was the winter before Bighorn, because I remember talking about Bighorn.
Yeah, that was, man, I didn't realize it was that long ago. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was probably about a bit of a year and a half ago.
All right, I'll put the link in the show notes so people could go back and listen and remember who you are and all that. But we get to introduce somebody new today. So Andrea, let's thank you for jumping on. I got to meet you. I mean, we're Strava people, we're on Strava, but I got to meet you at this race, and you're a beast. And so so let's find out a little bit about you, because one of the things I think is interesting about this podcast is we're all kind of flatlanders, and we went up into these crazy mountains. And so we're going to talk about that before we even get to the race. We're going to talk about training, but just tell everybody where you're from and how long you've been there.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm very honored to be on your podcast. So thank you for extending the invitation to let me be a part of this conversation. So I'm located here outside of Manhattan, Kansas, so St. George area, and definitely a flatlander that loves to run in the mountains, and definitely have to get creative with what training looks like so that we can survive in the mountains. Yeah. And I've been doing this crazy sport for about 5 years. I've always been into running, but just wanted to see how much further can my body go. And I think from my brother and just growing up in the mountains, like, it was kind of a pull to like just see what type of challenges were out there. So I picked up ultra running, skipped right over a marathon, and just went straight into the really long distances.
I like it. So where are you from originally?
A very small town outside of Salina, Kansas. So I grew up on a farm, my dad being a veterinarian, and kind of outside. And then Colorado was like our summer vacations. We were always playing in the mountains. So it's kind of bittersweet to now be able to run really far in the mountains.
That's awesome. That's cool. Yeah. And I'm from South Louisiana. And so anytime we got to, it's flat, hot, and humid there. It's cool. It's got good food. But anyway, I love, it's something about the mountains that just call, and I struggle doing mountain races. Devin, we've talked about Silver Heels and what a, butt kicking that was and all, but it's so fun. It's so amazing to get out there and do it. And anytime I can race out there, got to do it. So you've been doing this for about 5 years. You jumped straight to ultra marathon. So like, how did that happen? Like, what enticed you? What drew you to it?
So, I mean, my brother does gravel cycling, and he had just kind of threw the carrot in front of me. He's like, have you ever tried anything further, the 5K? And so I wanted to try like a half marathon. So I did one half marathon. I did a non-sanctioned marathon during COVID. And then after that, I was hooked. I'm like, let's see how far I can actually run. And from there, I picked some of the hardest races on Ultrasigna. You Google and you're like, that looks easy. Let's go the harder one.
Nice.
And picked a few in Arkansas, and then from there it's history. It was like, let's keep doing this.
Yeah. What was your first ultra?
My first ultra was the Razorback
Okay.
55K in Arkansas. And then I went back and did the 50 miler. And that's where I met one of Devin's friends. And then we all kind of hooked up from there and kind of just traveled around together doing races.
Nice. Yeah, that was the Razorback running revival. That's no longer doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, I heard it was a beast.
It definitely for my first ultra, that was probably not one that most recommend.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and especially because that particular race director is known to like throw in extra miles and climbs and everything else like that. So, but at least you didn't really come from like hardcore road running, because during COVID there were a lot of road runners hitting the trails with us, and they were like, "This course is long," and I'm like, "Yeah, dude, everything's ish, dude. Just run, man. It's they're not going to charge you extra. Don't worry about it. Just go there.
Right. Tack on another mile or so, and then you'll be done."
Yeah, that's it. You're good. So what was your first 100 miler?
So my first 100 miler was the Hell Creek 100.
Okay.
And I did an attempt in 2022.
Okay.
And did not finish. I definitely did not respect that course enough.
Yeah.
And then the second year I came back determined to tackle it and finished it this past year.
Nice.
And running on mountain bike trails in circles 5 nights.
Yeah.
It is definitely an ankle breaker.
That does something to your like in your hips and knees and stuff. Because I've done I did a timed race in Louisiana on one of those, and there's a lot of curves and a lot of, it does weird things to your body, and I can't imagine doing 100 miles on that.
You feel like you should be closer to the aid station, but it zigzags you a lot, and it toys with your emotions.
Is it one of those where you're like, there are people like right next to you and you don't know if they're in front of you or behind you because of the way the trails just whip around and everything? So it's pretty confusing. Yeah.
Yeah. You think you're closer to them than you actually are.
Yeah.
And you keep running thinking you're going to get them, and you're actually like a mile away from them.
Yeah. That's so you blow it all out. So, okay. Right. So, I relate to the mindset, and I think Devin does too, of when you don't finish a race, there's like some unfinished business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There's something like you, I don't know, when you DNF, I don't know, you can be depressed, or it's okay to be upset or whatever, but you need to learn, I take it, you need to learn from it. Mm-hmm. If you learn from it and go back and conquer that, then it's a good, it's a good thing. And then it's so much sweeter when you finish,
Yeah. You have a fierce focus to tackle it. And I think that's how I felt when I did not finish that first attempt. And so that was kind of all I could think about, and had that bib sitting right next to my computer, staring at it, knowing that I was going to take it the next year.
I love it. So when I DNF'd Moab, I put my bib from my failed Moab, and it was right above my monitor. And so even when I was doing podcasts and stuff, I'd see that stupid thing up there. And so when I went back and conquered it, it was like,
yeah, it's like that gentle, angry reminder.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's cool.
Wasn't the weather even worse the year that you finished it? Like, wasn't it? It was like half the field.
Terrible.
It. Well, not you. You finished that thing.
I was so angry, but yeah, it was, like the weather was beautiful the year I DNF'd. And then the year I went back, it was 100 degrees, 60 mile an hour wind gusts.
No shade.
That sounds terrible.
It's the perfect redemption race to say we're so capable of more. Nice.
I like it. Yeah, you had to dig deep and some grit, some grit there. So what did you do differently? I always like to ask, like, what did you do differently as far as training from between the two? How did you train differently for the second time?
I think the first attempt, I struggled. My ankle just was not cooperating. the second, I think another piece is nutrition. Nutrition was not dialed in the first
That's huge.
attempt.
Yeah.
And so the second attempt, I focused a lot on how, like, the types of calories I was taking in and practicing more there.
Yeah.
And strength was something Devin and I talk about it often, of like, do more strength,
I love it.
because that
My people.
yes, that is a key component of like how long you can endure some of those races. Is if you don't have the strength there, it just makes everything exponentially harder. And so that was nutrition and strength was a huge focus going into the second attempt.
Nice. So when you're in the thick of training, you know, you're training for a specific race, how often do you hit the gym?
So I try to do at least 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Each session. A lot of mine is full body. Like, I'll just do full body workout.
Yeah.
Because that's really kind of, you know, you're using all the muscles, but that has been kind of the sweet spot. For me.
Yeah, no, I highly believe it. I know Devin, you like to be a gym bro and do all the things. I only felt one time where, you know how people get the bends, you know, where their core, and I was like, I never want to do that. And like one time I felt it a little bit toward the end of a race, and I was like, oh, that's weird. And I was like, I never want to feel that again, you know. So always make sure and hit the weights, and you know, you gotta. Yeah, it just helps. It's good to be strong. Yeah. Well, okay, so you know, you guys are my people. I like it. You know, I like it. You both go for redemption when you fit. You know, both hit the gym. This is good. This is good. So let's talk about High Lonesome. All right, we are, you know, like we said, we're flatlanders. We like oxygen. We don't get to climb a whole lot, but there's something about the mountains, and like High Lonesome, man, that is just such a beautiful, beautiful course. And there's something about it. I don't know what drew you guys to it.
Devin, you go.
Well, that was the race that got me into running to begin with. Like, I think it was the race started in 2017. I started running, following ultras 2018, 2019. I saw mile 90 photos, and that's what sold me on it. But I didn't know that normal people ran, or I guess none of us are really normal, but I didn't know that, like, we could go do that.
Yeah.
Photos, and then, you know, and that's always been just the dream race. This would have been the 4th year that I tried to get into the race. So I had 4 years worth of lottery entries. And so, but that was always the dream race. I mean, and yeah.
Nice.
Using everything.
Nice.
Yeah. I think very similar. Like it hooked me with the what was it, the well, and
the video, that YouTube video.
We can talk about, did you meet the 2 people? Did you meet Chris and Rachel?
Yeah, I did. I met, so Lost Wonder, he helped me get myself back together again and fed me pierogies. And I didn't get a chance to tell him thank you, because between him and another person there, they did wonders for me and my system. But I think it was the same, like watching that video. But that area of Colorado is a common area that we would go vacation. My dad. Oh,
nice.
And so we were up in that entire area all the time, every summer. And so it was really cool to cover it on TV.
Yeah, it's just so, it's beautiful. It's hard to explain to people that don't go, and you know, I don't know how anybody could visit those mountains in particular, or any of it, and not like just be in awe, you know, and just fall in love with it. So, you know, knowing we're you know, Flatlander. Okay, so for those listening, Devin did not know he was going to be in this race. He was on the wait list, like way at the bottom. And dude got in the week of, like a few days before, Tuesday. And like, he's like, I'm in, let's go. So you were training. I mean, I know you stay, you know, pretty active and stuff, but you were training just in case, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I have Tough Mudder stuff going on later this year, but it was probably about 6 weeks ago when I just looked at the wait list, just kind of for giggles, to see where I was, because I was literally dead last for the majority of the year. And then I realized I moved up quite a bit. I reached out to the race director and just was asking why, you know, runners drop, weightlifters drop, all the things. And then I hit up Andrea. I'm like, okay, so what if I get in this? I need to go talk with Andrea. And so we met up for a good run out of the Kanza there in Manhattan and just talked High Lonesome the whole time. And then I was really kind of prepping this last, you know, five weeks like I was going to get in. But mentally, I was like, there's no way I'm getting in.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm getting in. And then, you know, back and forth, I was going to take my name off. I was going to, you know, but I was like, I'm going to give it till the Wednesday morning of the race. Because if I get in Wednesday morning, that would give me enough time to drive to Colorado and run the race. So I was like, Wednesday morning. And then it was Tuesday evening. I went to a concert in Kansas City. Me and my wife just not thinking I was going to get in. And I get an email in the middle of the show, Devin, a runner dropped. You're in the race. Let's go.
Yeah. That's so awesome.
And then, Andrea, she's a part of our Bucklehead group here, here in Topeka. I sent out a bat signal. Who wants to come with me? Because Andrea had her whole family going and everything. I'm like, well, I have 3 boys and this is going to be a really difficult thing to swing. But, Brian answered the call. We hopped in his car and we just drove to Colorado.
Nah,
that's so how it all worked out, but yeah,
that's so cool. You were just I don't know, ambitious enough. I was gonna say stupid, but I don't want to say that. Just I'm in. Let's go. That's cool.
Yeah, but, the caveat was on how so in order to do High Lonesome, you have to do a trail work requirement, and if you're a weightlifter, you don't have to do that. But if you do it as a weightlifter, you get to skip everyone in July that hasn't done it yet. And so that's why I got shot up to the top of the list. Because I went and did the trail work here in Topeka, and I got, just a what if, because had I not done that, I would not have ran the race. I wouldn't have gotten in. So,
yeah, nice. So that's totally cool, man. You, it was supposed to happen, dude. It was supposed to,
Little did I know we can get into it on what was in store. It was kind of, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, we'll get there. We're gonna get there. Whole lot of pain and suffering. We'll get there in a minute. So Andrea, how did you, so you got in just in the lottery like I did, right?
The easy way.
So the easy way. So what did you do to prepare for this? We'll talk about it, but this is a hard race. And so what did you do? How many miles did you get in? What did you do to handle the climbing? All the things.
Yeah. So I have been working with a coach for the past couple of years, Adam Kimball, and he has been incredible. A 100 specialist, I would say. He's been incredible just in getting me the guidance. So it's been very consistent. I would average anywhere from 40 to, upwards of 65, 70 miles a week, as we got into peak weeks. But a lot of it dealt with hill repeats, running in a weighted vest in the middle of the day when it's the hottest to try to acclimate to some of that higher altitude. And so I would be out in a weighted vest running for 3-4 hours sometimes, just trying to get myself used to heavy packs.
Wow, no, that's awesome. And the things we do. So what did your neighbors think?
I think they all know me well enough at this point that it's just Andrew's just doing her thing, prepping for a race. In the beginning, there was some odd stares and trying to figure out why would anybody want to subject themselves to that type of training.
I get that often when I post something about a race I'm about to do. I have a friend, he just posts, he puts all caps with a whole bunch of question marks. Why? It's because
why not?
Yeah, that's kind of what I do. Either why not, or the miles are there and somebody's got to run them. I don't know. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's a good test of your mental fortitude to get it done.
Yeah. So to share with everybody, so with mine, April 25th, I had knee surgery. I had my knee scoped. I had the debridement, and they snipped some meniscus. And so I went through PT and everything, and I'm like, oh, I'm just not going to be able to race. And as I was going through PT and talking to my doctor, they were like, well, I mean, I don't know. So as I was doing better, I said, maybe I'll just give it a shot. I have a lot of experience. I've run a lot of races, and I was going to rely on that. And I was able to get 2 60-mile weeks in but flat. And then I was doing some sauna protocol stuff to try to, help with the altitude. And I was like, and so my last long run, my last 20-mile run, my knee swelled up, and I was doing fantastic up until then. So I started my taper a little bit early, and I was like, I got to go. And so here's funny, Devin, I told you this is kind of funny. Devin, he was checking up on me and stuff like, hey, how's the knee and stuff. But I told him, I was like, I told my wife, I was like, he's hoping my knee blows out so I drop so he can take it.
I think I was 2 on the wait list when I messaged you.
Yeah, that's right.
He wanted to know what his odds were.
He wanted to know what his odds were, because I was contemplating dropping, but I was like, man, I just, there's no refund, and I'm just gonna go for it. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I got the experience. I'm glad I got to see and be out there. I'm glad I got to be out there with you guys and see what you guys did and all. But anyway, so I was severely, especially high altitude. One of the best things to do, not only the heat and all, but is just to be really fit for us flatlanders. The fitter you are, the better you can handle the altitude. And so I wasn't nearly as fit as I wanted to be, but well, just let's go for it. So, so you guys get out there, do y'all both drove, right? Yeah. I mean, you're both family and all. Yeah. Drive out there, set up. And I think that, Andrea, did you guys camp out too?
We actually ended up getting an Airbnb, just kids and family friends. It was a lot. So we Airbnb, I can't sleep on the ground anymore, especially after running 100 miles. No way.
Yeah. I hear you. And then Devin, you guys just, you were like last minute everything. So you pitched the tent, and like, I heard one of you mentioned like that cheap tent held up pretty good. So
it did. I mean, like, thankfully that, like, I was worried about night sleep because I've been running on, fumes for the last, 3-4 days leading up to it, all the mental exhaustion of, am I going to get in? Am I not? Now I'm in. Now I got to come up with a plan. Now I got to drive to Colorado. And so I was just worried about sleeping. But Brian had this little blow up air mattress, and I slept like a baby. So
nice. And I camped out of the back of my truck. I have like a tent thing that fits on the back of it. And so I did that, and it was actually pretty nice. It was pretty quiet out there when I got there. And around the start finish is beautiful. You're surrounded by gorgeous mountains. I mean, yeah, it's amazing. So you get there, race morning, all the work's put in, we're there at the starting line. What's going through, Andrea, you go first. What's going through your mind?
I think the oh my gosh, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
That level of excitement, because the course is just incredible. Like, they're absolutely magnificent, but how hard it is going to be.
I thought I knew.
Hard. And so a little bit of the nerves, but I think the excitement took over for, like, we're going to do this thing.
Yeah, we're here. It's time. Yeah. Devin, what's going through your brain, man?
Mine was, I just can't believe I'm here. Like, I've watched those 2 documentaries at least 50 times a piece on YouTube, just over and over again. And I just couldn't believe I was there. I couldn't believe I got in. I couldn't, believe that I was lining up with you 2, and just all the things. I think especially when we started, Andrea and I were like, look at us go. Look at us.
Yeah, that's cool. And then while we're hanging out there, like Scott Jurek's there with his wife. There's Bronco Billy, and there's this like, some big cheeses over here, man. Some beasts, some OGs and stuff.
When we get to the point, I've got a Scott Jurek story, like, later in the race. I don't know if you read my race post or not, but yeah, we ran with Scott and his wife up on the toughest part of the course.
Nice. Well, I talked to Brian. Was it were you with Brian when y'all were doing? Was it Brian that told me that y'all were running? Y'all ran
Yeah,
Olympic?
mine was the one that was up there.
Yeah. He told me he shared, but I want to hear your perspective when we get there. So, yeah, so we take off and you know, like my whole thing was like, no, I don't know what's gonna happen, but let's see, let's see. I'm gonna give it a shot, just whatever. I really didn't pressure myself too much with it because of where I was. I'm like, I'm just gonna give it what I have, and so it started, and I don't know, races. I don't know. I wasn't too nervous, but I was like, let's just see what happens. And then we go running across that field that's with the rocks and the holes and everything else. I'm like, that'd be pretty crappy to turn an ankle right here or something, But the first, that mile, what do they call it? Swear Hill or something like that. Yeah. So we were going down it, which was fantastic. But I was thinking this would be a beast to come back up, which I'm sure you guys could be able to share in a little while.
It was.
Yeah, it was. But it was kind of just fun to settle in and go, and then I think until we hit the single track, it was like, all right, let's see what's going to happen. That's when things started getting some climbs and everything else. And so for you guys, when did the nerves start to kind of settle and like, all right, and kind of, I don't know, get your game face on?
Mine was when Andrea started to power hike much faster than me. And and I'm like, oh no, I'm in trouble. No, yeah, it was that climb once we really started climbing, and I realized I didn't we can go through what not to do on a mountain race at some point. We can go over that stuff, but that's when the nervous was like, I knew that there was the Ontario climb was huge, and I was starting to feel it already. And I was like, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah. What about you, Andrea?
I mean, I will be honest, I felt pretty good through Cottonwood. You're like, oh.
Yeah,
I felt great on up till about Hancock.
Okay.
And I think from Hancock, it was my legs felt great. Everything from my body felt great. It was more of my stomach was starting to revolt on the things that I was eating.
Yeah.
But Hancock to the end was really really challenging to try to keep the wheels from fully coming off. I put them back on quite a few times.
Yeah. Well, I'm with Devin. When we were climbing in Ontario, I was like, holy crap, this is, and I think that climb might have had like 650 feet in 1 mile or something. I don't remember. I looked back at it and I was like, wow, no wonder we were, it was tough. And then coming down into Cottonwood, well, going up, that was pretty beastly, but going down into Cottonwood, and that's where my knee was. So, okay, I gotta share a story. So at Antero, I was coming into the aid station there. I saw Jamil was there. They had a camera, and I was probably about, 50 feet from the aid station. And if you remember, it was just really rocky, a lot of cantaloupe sized rocks. It was, I Supermaned, just ate rocks like big time, and everybody could see it. And there was this kid standing on top of a Jeep, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I don't know." And I just started running, and he said, "I don't see blood." And then a little while later, a guy on the side said, "I see blood." So it's like, it was terrible, but nobody said anything. And so I went back on the live feed, and I was like, it was about this time to see if it caught me doing it, but I was kind of hoping it was on the live feed. That'd have been awesome to see it, but anyway, it happens. Okay, who fell? Did you fall? Oh, look at Andrea. She's like, I didn't fall at all. Did you fall, Devin?
I did fall. It was at a water crossing right before I tried to skip the rocks, and it was right before Cottonwood, and I fell. And it was funny because when I came home, my 2-year-old son, he looked at my leg and he was like, oh no, what happened? But
yeah,
that was it though. I always like to recite Shane Falco from The Replacements that, chicks dig scars, but glory lasts forever. So
Yeah. Well, as I'm rubbing my left knee, I still have a scab from that. So I still it's still there. I still have a souvenir. So feel sorry for me.
yeah, I was so far behind. I got to Ontario, and the live feed people were already gone. Like I was so far behind. Like so, just to backtrack a little bit, the plan was, when Andrea and I were talking, a loose game plan as to if I get in, and then when I did get in, like, okay, let's try and stick together, and like let's pull each other up, when we need it. It took like probably I think 8 miles, and Andrea had to stop a couple times, and she actually filled up my bladder, with her water filter off Ontario. Otherwise, I really would have been screwed. But I was like, Andrea, you're beasting. You go on without me. And then I never saw her again. So, but Andrea, you killed it. That was fun to watch that. So
what you didn't see is the wheels came off several times, and
I've heard this.
So I don't know. And somebody asked when I got into Cottonwood, we crossed right before Cottonwood, and you looked great, and I was like, and I don't know where, like, because when I took off, I was feeling good at first or whatever, and I don't know where you passed me. It must have been in an aid station or something somewhere along the way, because I sat down a couple of times to go through my drop bag and stuff, and you probably just came bebopping through, and and then
and that's what I had thought. You had been ahead the whole time. And so when I saw you come back when I got to Cottonwood, I had asked how you were doing, and they're like, he's not yet. And like, where is David?
Yeah.
And
what happened?
When I crossed paths again, and I didn't spend a lot of time in those first couple of aid stations. My plan was to get in and get out, because I wanted to get to Hancock with enough time to start managing the dark. And I think the piece that I was more like concerned about is managing the dark. And we must have passed.
Yeah. Well, and when I saw you look great. You were smiling. You looked like you were feeling great, and like you said you were. So that was good. It was good to see you. And by that time, I knew at the aid station before that, at mile 25, I was like, yeah, this knee's not gonna. But I wanted to get at least to 50K, so I was like, I'm gonna keep going, and so I got into to Cottonwood, and I got some ice, on my knee, and I'm sitting there, and the medic comes up to me, and he said, "Hey, what's going on?" And I was like, "Well, let me tell you my story." So I said, April 25th, I had knee surgery, and I see him calculating. He's like, "Why are you here?" He's like, and so we talked a little while, and he said, "Well, you're mentally good and all that." And he said, "I can give you Tylenol and send you on your way." But then he looks me in the eye and says, like, "You know what you should do." It's like, yeah, I'd already kind of knew. And so, I made that decision just to, I didn't want to, damage my knee long-term and everything else. And so then it kind of became about, where's Devin? We're looking for Devin. We're waiting for Devin to come in. And so Devin, you must have that climb, those climbs must have, you were having a tough time when you came in. Tell a little bit about where you were mentally, physically during that.
That climb smoked me. I don't know what it was, because it wasn't as bad the next 5 climbs that we had, because I think we had a total of 6 major ones, but I don't know what it was. Like, I mean, it was the stomach. It was, behind on hydration, so one thing not to do is, I use Proxima. I use Ultraverse supplements. Well, I didn't bring any on this course. I'm like, well, they have Scratch. I've used that before. Well, didn't really do the trick. Andrea gave me a Go Gel that I've never had before. I had it. 30 seconds later, it comes right back up. It was just kind of one of those, like, man, I don't know. And then it was the stomach, and then I was managing time coming down, and the headache, and just all the things that a flatlander, has to worry about up there. And it just took forever.
Yeah.
I think at one point, because Brian and Josh were there, they're like, I was 4th from last coming into Ontario.
Wow.
After like kind of running middle of the pack, like I've never had the wheels fall off at mile 14 before, but there it did. But I'm like, there's no way I can just quit because I have all this invested, all this time.
Yeah.
My buddies rallied behind me, and it was just, well, let's just get to Cottonwood and assess the damage.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
you
so young and dumb, and continue.
Yes. He told me, he said, because he's my age, and he's like, you're older, you look like a smart guy, and he told you you were young and dumb. I was like, I was dying.
Well, there's a cool piece of footage that Brian got with his GoPro, and it was like, well, he asked how I was feeling, and I was like, well, I feel like crap, and then he got serious, and he was like, when was the last time you used the bathroom? When was the last time you ate? And like, oh, he's actually assessing whether or not to pull me, or because I only had I was an hour ahead of cutoff, that early into the race, and then I said I was fine. I was getting back on the swing of things, and he goes, well, you're young, you're dumb, you'll get through it. Continue on.
That's great. I was cracking up. Well, so for you to be able to, because when we saw you, when you came in, like I saw your face, I was like, yeah, he's, you were in struggle bus, like the wheels were like, maybe they weren't off, but man, they were like, it was pretty rough. But for you to be able to go from that to finish it, like just from what I saw there, I just want to give you kudos, because that was a lot of mental strength. And you sat there and we're trying to give you food and stuff, and you were doing the things, but you just weren't happy. But I remember I told you, like, I just remember telling you, like, okay, I'm out. So like, dude, you got to do this. It's on you now. That's exactly it. And so I was, anyway, it was good to see that that you were able to hang in there and get it done.
Well, at that point, leading up to the race, I've envisioned finishing on that field 1,000 times, and whether it was with my kids, whether it was with friends, but at that point it was, okay, I have 3 hours to get to St. Elmo, and that's the only thing I'm focusing on, is getting to St. Granted, there was that massive climb back over Lost Pass that we just did. So it was just, okay, I got 3 hours to get there, and that was the task.
And so, I mean, just for everybody listening, when you're running an ultra, and Andrea, you can chime in on that too, because especially when it gets tough, at that point you could not think of, I have 70 miles to go, almost 70 miles or 60 whatever miles to go, and I am feeling like poo, garbage, and you have to break it down, like, okay, my next task, everything that I have is to get to the next aid station. And it's just a reminder, man, you've got to break it down, because you'll get overwhelmed and you will shut down, and you're like, what's the use? And I'm out. Yeah.
So proud of both of you. Like, between that initial climb up Antero, that broke a lot of people.
Yeah.
And like David, you going in recovering from surgery, and then Devin, like the whole sick and trying to like get over that hump, like that. A lot of people don't navigate through those things very well, and it is like you have to just break it down into small bite-sized chunks.
Yeah. And
that was the entire race for me, was aid station to aid station. I never focused on the end. It was always aid station to aid station, because it is so overwhelming.
Yeah. And even in this race, even aid station to aid station, when you look at the climbs between them, you're like, oh, okay.
How about the elevation gain and descent on the next section? And sometimes it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. And like with my knee, I think that's what did it, because at the 50K, I had 8,400 feet of climbing, and we had gone up to 13.1, and almost that much of descent. And so just that up and down, like, my knee wasn't ready for all that. And so that was a big part of it. So when, when you guys are you get out of Cottonwood and you're cruising on. So Andrea, out of Cottonwood was St. Elmo. So you said you felt pretty good up until Hancock, and Hancock's what, almost halfway, 49.3. miles. And so you just kind of kept cruising along. You felt just,
Yeah.
handling it.
Yeah. I think honestly, like that was a big portion of it, because in those pre-race meetings that we had leading up to it, Caleb, the race director, said, nutrition, you have to be dialed in on nutrition, because that point from Tin Cup to Hancock,
Yeah.
I think as Ray said, where dreams go to die.
Yeah.
Because you're up like at a high point. I don't know, what is the elevation? 11,000
It's up there. Yeah.
up there, and you're sustaining that for a few hours to get down into Hancock. And I think Hancock's like you drop down to like 10,000 something.
Yeah.
And so that was really like trying to like maintain nutrition, hydration, so that you didn't get cooked going through that point. And legs still continued to feel good up until, we got to Hancock and getting some more nutrition there. But I think that's where just staying at that elevation for such a period of time kind of just wears you down.
Yeah. And then Devin, I want you to chime in on that, but Andrew, did you feel the altitude, especially when we got up to Antero, the 13, over 13,000 feet?
Honestly, I didn't feel terrible.
Okay.
And maybe I've been very lucky, but I have felt good at those high points.
Okay.
I think it was more long term. It was starting to wear down.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I felt it. I felt it. Devin, did you, when we got up that high, could you tell the difference in your effort, in your breathing, in your cardio?
Yeah, it was always the come down. Like when you would go up high, be sustained high, you'd be at, for me, I was really trying to hike in that 17 to 19 minute ballpark. And then when I come down and try and push, that's when everything would come back up. When I would try to push, but you're still at elevation, but you're running downhill. So you feel like, you should be running. And then that's when that was my first leapfrog with Jenny Jurek, when I would be, it was dark at that point for me. Like I didn't get to Hancock till midnight, and the cutoff was like 1:30. But that was my first like puke and rally, because going down into Hancock, it's all like, I think it's an old like railroad tie stuff, so it's all downhill runnable. It's not really bad, but you're still just high, and you've been up high for so long going over that Tin Cup pass, and that's tough, especially when you're like, I'm on a time crunch. I gotta get there. Like Andrea had plenty of cushion,
Yeah. And that's the other thing mentally, because you were, you had some cushion, but you were more or less chasing cutoffs to an extent. It was in your mind, and you've got to like not let that get to you. Still have pace yourself where you're doing it, but you're not cooking yourself. You're not just blowing it all out the water.
Yeah, I was trying to keep that hour cushion, like an hour ahead of cutoff. That way it wasn't like in panic mode, but it was still like, hey, we got to go mode. And yeah. Nice.
So how did it feel? You got to Hancock. That's like the halfway point. That's just about the halfway point. That's kind of mentally that. How did that feel mentally?
For me, it felt good to. I was looking forward to seeing my husband Devin, and then my friend Ren, who I got to pick up, and I think that was really exciting to see them, and it was like a morale boost.
Yeah.
And I also, we had met the aid station captain, Blake, and one of her friends, Kim, the day before, and got pointers and, hey, suggestions. But it was fun to see them. And one of the things that, in the back of my mind is I was like, oh man, these next couple of climbs are going to be rough, especially in the dark.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
He's like, amen, sister.
And I think that's Ren, my friend that paced me, she was so great. She studied the course, and that's what I would say is those pacers that are dedicated to being out there with us for hours on end as we death march / try to run through some of that stuff. And, you know, she was great at just kind of giving me, here's what you need to mentally prepare yourself for, you know, checking out and reminding myself to eat and drink.
Yeah. And it's crazy. You don't think but you need those reminders like, hey, are you eating? You know, are you drinking? And that's one of the, like, I run a lot without pacers, but like when I remember I'd love it when I was running in and Cliff Pittman was pacing me and he kept asking like, are you eating? Are you drinking? Are you peeing? You know, it's like those you know, all those questions and you're like, oh yeah, I need to eat, you know? So it's, yeah. Devin, when did you pick up your first pacer?
So Hancock that's when you could pick up your first pacer. That was the first like major mental checkpoint for me because Ryan, who drove out here with me, that was because when I went into Cottonwood, I was like, man, if I get cut from this race, I'm going to be so mad because I let Brian and Josh that came out and paced, and we'll get to Jonathan pacing me too before Summit.
He's about to do a 200-mile race, and he's like, "I go 17 miles with you." You know,
it's absurd. We'll get there.
Yeah,
but that was the first major checkpoint because I'm like, okay, I got to Brian. Brian can experience this with me. He can get me through. The idea was for him to pace me all the way to Blanks, which was a 50K. So we were joking, like, man, you get a free mountain 50K out of this. You're going to be doing the thing, but you know, we'll talk about these sections coming up, but I mean, we got smoked going up and over, leaving Hancock and then getting to Lost Wonder Hut and stuff. But that was the first major checkpoint, was at least getting to Brian so that I didn't feel like I disappointed him and dropping his entire life to come help me do this thing. So that was the first major uplifting thing. And then it was, oh boy, what did we sign up for?
Well, I think it's a good time to pause and, you know, because there, you know, I don't know how much you guys do races without like crew and pacers, which I do. I guess about half of them. Sometimes I have a crew with no pacers. Sometimes I have neither. And so I was out there with drop bags, but but that is a mental, like when I did Moab, when Jennifer was crewing me, my wife was crewing me, that was a huge, like, okay, I have 8 stations in between, but I got to get to Jennifer. I got to get to her. And that drew me, you know, that helped. It gave me a mindset. That gave me, you know, a next big step. And so getting to Hancock when you can pick up somebody's going to be with you in the crud, in the suffering, in the mountains, and not only to share the suffering, but to share like the race, you know, to share the beauty, to share the course, you know, that's pretty huge. I think that's a big mental part of it.
So we were also preparing because in the pre-race meetings, he was like, during the section overnight, it's going to be 90% chance of rain. And so we're also preparing for that. And, you know, like the trail running gods look down and they're like, here, we're going to give you the biggest moon absolutely possible to look over these mountains without a cloud in the sky.
That's cool. That's cool. I was so glad that you guys got to not have the rain.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
That was incredible. Yeah. That was most definitely the trail gods looked down on us because there was flash flood warnings and all kinds of things that we could have been up against, and the stars literally aligned. How
was it up that high at night with the full moon? But and I know some of the trails are smooth. Did you guys hit some pretty technical trails at night?
Go
ahead, Devin.
Going down into Lost Wonder Hut was nothing. Like there was probably a mile of just nothing but boulders and like, you know, you couldn't even stick your poles in there because like you would basically go and you could potentially even break them. That was a little frustrating because it was downhill, but they were all boulders and like probably a mile of that stuff. And then leaving Wonder Hut before you get to the head wall, you go on this dirt road and then I think you start climbing. I think it's on the Colorado Trail or the Continental Divide Trail, one of those two trails that's right there leaving. And then that's when you start the major climb. But I would say overall, not really that technical besides that part. But
I believe they said they had some snow, but there was some sections that got kind of muddy. And your feet the feet were wet a
Ah.
lot of the that was
Mhm.
one thing that I was working to try to manage, was
Yeah.
not to destroy my feet so that I
Yeah.
could keep going. But I would say my feet were probably wet for 30 hours of the race.
Wow. That's most of the race. Yeah, yeah. What were the temps like at night? Did it get pretty cold up there?
I want
Was
to
it
say it was like 50s.
40?
Oh,
Was
Okay.
it?
Maybe I was just wearing a lot of clothing. I want to say it might have been in the 40s. I could see my breath, but it wasn't like shivering cold. Like I'm kind of a wuss when it comes to the cold. You can ask any of my friends or even my wife. I'm a wuss when it comes to the cold, but I don't feel like it got that cold. I was worried about the cold and the rain,
yeah,
for the
yeah,
most part, but it didn't rain, and that moon would just opened everything up, and there was snow up top, a little bit of like those hidden, peak mountain, like facing away from the sun sections. You could see it.
yeah.
Yeah. When did you start that head wall climb? Was that it was night then, but was it like because
Yeah, I
we
want to
started
say
climbing that stuff. It was probably like 3, 4 a.m. when we started climbing it.
midnight, 1 o'clock is when we
Yeah.
started climbing it. And
Like
bless my friend Ren, that's when the wheels really came off. Like Lost Mother Hut, they got me some food because at that point I was trying to find things that my system could take in.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't take in scratch anymore. So I was trying to drink water, eat salt tabs.
Yeah.
And then I was eating pierogies, cold pierogies up and over that head wall. There were some points where it was like, can I just sit down here?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But my friend was like, Ryan was like, we're just going to push to purgatory and get there.
Yeah.
Like you're at such a high altitude for a period of time trying to get up and over that head wall that you needed to get down so you could start eating better again.
So you
I
think,
think I
you
had
think, oh, I was gonna say, Andrea,
Yeah.
you think it was the accumulation of like the altitude and just all that just had finally just got to your stomach, the
Yeah, I mean, and that's something I battled with the last attempt of 100 and then finishing is like
Yeah.
at a certain point I get tired of eating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to like find things that I can get in and keep down. But I think that once we got down into Monarch, I was able to get more into me so that we could move forward, and I had to switch up what I was drinking. Good old Gatorade.
Yeah, yeah. I tell the runners I coach a lot. It's good to have just options because you don't know, like something could work really well for you and you'll get tired of it and it'll make you sick. And so you need, it's good to have options or to rotate the things you're eating during a race so you don't get palate fatigue and become, just puking and all that. So,
Are
and
you
then
describing my race?
yeah, there you go. Describing your race. I saw you looking at those trying to get those noodles down at 50K in, it's like, yeah. So did you have similar, I mean, you were doing the same thing around the same spot, Devin?
Yeah, well, that was like we had 4 hours to get to Purgatory. Purgatory didn't have the cutoff, but Monarch did.
Yeah.
We had like 4 hours to get there, and we knew what was coming, but we didn't know what was coming. Like that section was so steep, and it's often described as when you're looking up. Like I think I said, "Oh my," to Brian so many times because like there are so many. Like you can't really see my hands, but like you just look up, and they describe it as the only way you can distinguish between the stars and headlamps is that the headlamps are together because the runners are typically with the pacer. But you look up, and it just. Granted, I'm so far back in the race that there's not really a whole lot of runners there, but there were people up there, and it like that's when I wanted to save the music for like that area, but I turned the music on 50K in, so because I needed something, but that section was tough, but Lost Wonder Hut, that's where we met Chris. That's where Brian and we met Chris, the A Station captain who was in the Well documentary. And he actually caught me at the end of the race with his wife, and it was just like, I thought that was so cool that you knew me from that. You're the only one that did. And I was like, dude, I've watched that so many times.
Yeah, that's awesome.
it was Lost Wonder Hut is an old, like, I think it's still functioning, a backcountry ski resort. And
Yeah.
so you go inside, you could get warm if you wanted to, but
Don't
Chase,
do it.
Yeah.
Don't.
Don't do it.
I had some of their backcountry pizza that they had, like this like homemade pizza stuff, and ate that, was able to keep that down, and then Brian and I continued on to Purgatory, and then it was really cool. So once we got through that climb, when we were up on the ridge, so you do the major climb and then they call it the ridge. That's where we saw the sunrise. And
Oh, nice.
much further behind Andrea. Andrea was probably in a purgatory at that point, but that was the most stunning sunrise I've ever seen in my life. And then Brian was with me, and he was like, "I'm pretty sure that's Scott Jurek." And then I put two and two together that I've been running with his wife for the last like 30 miles, like leapfrogging. And he was
That's
jumping
cool.
in there. He was jumping around. He was high energy. He was, doing all the things. And yeah, but that was so cool. And then by the end of the race, like I saw him at Blanks. I saw him again at the finish, and he was like, "Devin, is that you? Let's go, Kansas. Let's go." And it was just
Scott Jurek knows your name, boy.
it was really cool. And then I was running the same pace as his wife. So when he was out and someone else was pacing, Jonathan, Josh, and Brian, they were all like chatting it up with Scott Jurek because I was running the same pace as his wife. So they saw him at all the aid stations, which is cool.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that was a really hard section because how far would you say that is up on the ridge, Andrea? That's like probably 2 miles of sustained ridge running, like
Yeah.
something like
you're
that.
up there forever.
Yeah.
You can
You
see
get down
Monarch.
eventually.
Yeah, you can see Monarch, but it's a long ways away.
That's the one I think I remember hearing somebody or read a report or watched something and they're like, yeah, you see it, but he's like, it's
Long
you're not
away.
close. You're not close. Yeah. Nice. Well, so a lot of 100-milers, regular 100-milers, you get them done 24 hours, give or take a little bit or whatever. But so with this race, because it's so stinking hard and you're having to go so slow on the climbs and stuff, so you see the sun come up and you still got a ways to go. Like you got a whole, almost a whole other day to, during the day to get it done. How did that, I don't know, was the sun coming up? It was, Devin, you said it was beautiful, but was it also like, man, I still got a lot to go and it might be hot or whatever? How'd that go?
There's a section in that Well documentary too where Rachel in there was just like, she's seeing the sunrise from that section, but she's like, I shouldn't be here because I'm so far behind.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be seeing the sunrise from that section, but you are. Yeah, honestly, running the Outlaw this last February helped me with that because I attempted the 135. I ended up tapping it. I think I was 100. I wasn't prepared to go into the second night, but I had run, I was 36, 38 hours into the Outlaw. So I kind of knew what that felt like. And it took me 36 hours to finish Silver Hills. So I kind of know,
Yeah.
The cutoff for this race was 37 hours. So I kind of knew what that would feel like. But the sun rising did kind of give me that boost. And it wasn't like super hot, but it did get hot eventually. But knowing I still had a long ways to go really did kind of suck though.
Yeah. What about you, Andrew?
Yeah. I would say, we got to Monarch. Gosh, I don't even know. It was like 6 when we got to Monarch, and seeing the sunrise, I think, kind of gave me an extra like the sun is up. I'm not just staring at this singular light and seeing nothing else but like the moon in some cases.
Yeah.
And then I got to pick up Devin, my husband, Devin, and he takes me for the next section up to Blanks, which was nice because there was some downhill. I was able to kind of run some of the downhills. And I think that helped a little bit. But at that point, I was like on water and saltine crackers.
Yeah.
Because everything else just wasn't settling very well in my system. So it was a rough go, but I was trying to focus on one aid station at a time, don't get overwhelmed with everything else, because my brain was kind of in a dark place.
Yeah. I was going to ask that, like because it happens, and I try, and even when, like you've been there before, it's going to happen. But when you get there, it's so much worse than what you remember. Like, it's like, and so what tricks, do you do? Like, what do you tell yourself? How do you keep moving forward when you're in that place? Like, you're like, oh, I'm here again. And then what do you tell yourself? How do you will yourself to keep moving forward?
One in front of the other. It was,
Yeah.
The thing that I remember most vividly is Ren and Devin at Monarch saying, "You did not come this far to quit.
Yeah.
Let's get you food. Let's keep you moving."
Yeah.
And I just, it's amazing what, a little bit of food, you sit down for a couple of minutes and you get yourself back up and you start going again.
Yeah. 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 And those people telling you that, it helps.
Yeah.
So I always like to share when I was running the Loup-Garou in Louisiana, and I turned my ankle really bad at mile 19, and I was you kind of turn it and you limp a little bit, and then you kind of get back on stride, and it's like, it's fine. Well, I turned it again, and I kept limping, and it was a 20-mile loop. So I got into the main aid station, and my friend Edie, who's the race director, she said, "How you doing, Terrio?" And I said, "I just turned the crap out of my ankle." And without missing a beat, she was doing some stuff. She said, "Well, don't take your shoe off. It'll swell and you won't get it back on." And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to keep moving then. I guess I'm not getting any pity, so I'm just going to keep going. But that's what I needed to hear, because I ended up, doing really well and kept running the race, and I was able to do it without destroying my ankle. So, but sometimes you just need a word. And that's why I love, aid stations, people that volunteer at aid stations, that those positive words, those, and people that crew. And it's so important to, because if they entertain the negative with you, that'll bring you down. And Devin, when you came into Cottonwood, like, everybody was just being positive and trying to get you, all right, man, you didn't want to hear it that much, but you still perked up, you still kept going, like you found it. And I don't know, where do you draw on when you get to that dark place? Like, what keeps you moving?
I often call it my bag of whys, and I think of it as like a hobo knapsack. Like, you have it over your shoulder, and I've got all kinds of stuff in there. And so it started off with one car. When I ran my first 100-miler, I had one car that Carson, my son, he was probably 2, that he picked out. And then when we had my second boy, he picked out another one. And then before we left for Colorado, they both picked out a third one, because I have 3 boys now. And so I keep those in my pack. And so I remember leaving Cottonwood, Jonathan yells, "Remember your cars!" And then, I tapped on the cars, and, it's just kind of, that's one reminder that, like, hey, I got 3 boys that I'm sacrificing time away from them. I'm not going to quit on this.
Nice.
And then a lot of it just like youth growing up, I wasn't the athletic kid. I wasn't, I didn't do sports. I didn't do cross country, wasn't a runner, kind of just chilled back, did my own thing. And then, now doing all this crazy stuff. And I don't know. In this particular case, there was a lot of mental investment. There was a lot of financial investment. I was leaving my wife and family and everybody, and just like, they're going to have to pull me off of this course. I'm not quitting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
And thankfully it never came to that, but it was always at all these aid stations, like, especially at Monarch, like the deeper into the race you go after Monarch, because Caleb even said they build in some time in case if you encounter a storm, but the times only get more aggressive.
Yeah.
From Monarch to Fusis, it was all downhill, but I had to run that because I had, I think, 2 hours to go 7 miles. And when you're 100K in, that's a lot. Like, I had to haul, but that was so I've never dropped a pacer before. But kudos to Brian. He gave it his absolute all, but that headwalk climb zapped us. And he told me, he was like, "Devin, this is your race. I can find my way back. You need to go." And
Yeah.
so I left him, and then I was not expecting to see Josh and Jonathan at Monarch. Jonathan, he's been up in Colorado for the last week. He was acclimating for Summit, and I was joking with him, like, "What's up, dude? You want to pace some miles?" And then, I sat down, ate some watermelon, and then Jonathan, like, him and Josh were going back and forth with pacing me to blanks, which is where Josh was going to pick me up at. Josh didn't have any of his gear there, but Jonathan ended up. He had his van, and he put on his gear, and he pulled me through all the way to blanks.
That was awesome. That was
he had to catch me halfway there because I left as he was. So being a pacer, you had to have the same gear requirements. So he was thinking he could just put on his gear and go. No, he had to purchase the COSAR card. He had to,
Oh no, I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but he ended up catching me, and it was like I couldn't have thanked him enough. Like, because I didn't know, like, all the major climbing was done, but if you remember Andrea, they had so many of those just punchy climbs, like those just, they're not steep and they're not long, but they just punch you in the gut, and it's just, when you're that far into a race, it just stinks. But
it's hot, and then that last, like,
hot.
or the sun comes out, it's getting hot.
Yeah.
So you're at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. When I heard Jonathan was paying, I was like, I don't know whether I'm a high five him or tell him he's stupid. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing is, I don't know if I might have timed out before I had the blanks, because he pushed me, and I was letting him, when you're late in these ultras and you're trying to do the mental math when you're chasing cutoffs, and you're like, okay, so if I keep this pace at, I have this amount of time, I can be there at this time. It never works when you're the runner. Because your brain is fried at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I latched onto him, and he got me to blanks with about an hour to spare, and then.
So for everybody listening, blanks is 84.1, and then you got 16 to go.
There you go.
Those all those milestones, and when you start when it gets when you got a marathon left, and then you got a little bit left, that those are huge to drive you, especially when you've been suffering for so long. Did either one of you ever Andrea, I mean, you felt pretty strong for a good chunk of it, but did any of you ever like just get down where you doubted if you would be able to finish it?
I mean, there were some dark places after that head wall, where I needed some pep talks, to keep myself moving. But it was, that one foot in front of the other, and that I'll come this far and once you get to Monarch, it's like silly for you to say, do I stop here?
I just went through all that. Yeah.
Going. And like Devin said, Lily, my daughter, was going to run with me those last 3.7 some miles. And so she had her pacer gear. She was ready to go. And like, I can't not show up for that. And I also had, another one of my friends, Danielle, and her entire family came out to pace me for a section from blanks to the finish line. I'm like, you've got a lot of people cheering you on, the same as Devin. We've got a lot of people here. It's like, let's get this thing done. It's going to hurt. It's not going to feel good at some points, but it feels really real good when you walk across that finish line.
Yeah. So let's, you guys just dug deep. You pushed, and then Andrea, like, because you were pretty far ahead, and then I remember like you're at your pace. I was like, man, she's gonna, and then you could tell you had the rough time because your pace is slowed down. So you guys keep pushing through, and you get to that last mile. How was that stupid hill? I'll let Devin go first, because I saw a picture of his face on one of them, and it kind of said it all. I think.
Well, for me, I didn't one time think about the finish until I hit the road, and it was kind of like Bighorn. Like, I didn't think I would finish it until I hit the road. Yeah. But the road. So the way that the ultramath, Josh's watch, was a little off because I was still fighting time. Like, we couldn't just walk it in.
Yeah.
Like, we had to run some of that road. And it wasn't like, I think once we hit the Hot Springs Resort, that's when that climb really, it was like, what was it, an 800-foot climb? Is it something like that?
I
But
don't know. It's a lot.
the thing is, like leaving Raspberry too, that's the final aid station. Like it wasn't like a given. There were still some punchy climbs left.
Yeah.
And but I don't know, finally getting to that road and finally thinking that I would finish this thing was pretty powerful. And like Josh and I, we were run walking, and then we're like, okay, I built enough time in this section to where we can walk this hill. And it is a square hill. Like I think Caleb, the race director, when he first started the race, he could hear people cursing at that hill at the end because it's like, why would you put this at mile 99? It's just
Yeah.
one of those punchy little climbs again, but the energy is high. Aid station workers are coming to the finish. They're honking, they're cheering.
Yeah.
You know, it was, and then when you hit the field, for me, that's when the waterworks hit. That's when, you know, like Jonathan got a pretty good, or Brian, whoever got the GoPro video, and I was like, hey, look, at least my watch says 100. Like, like I was joking with people climbing because it said 99. I'm like, if this doesn't say 100, I'm going to be.
That's right.
I'm going to run around this field until it says 100.
Even if it gets to 100, Strava takes its tax, the Strava tax, and like knock you down, man. I've had that happen to me a bunch of times. Stupid Strava.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, so you get up there, and what did it feel like for you? You know, what did that tell me? Try to explain what it felt like to cross that finish line, bro.
I mean, I don't always intend. I never intend to be chasing cutoffs.
Yeah.
But it seems like, you know, Bighorn was very similar, where I got smoked on a climb and then I'm chasing cutoffs the entire day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and when you're finishing in that golden hour of a race, like like I finished with 30 minutes to go before the final cutoff.
Yeah.
The whole race is there. Everybody's cheering. You know, everybody is like, oh my God, I can't believe we just did this.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, like my boys are there, like, my boys as in Jonathan, Brian, and Josh. You know, Josh was the one that got me into running to begin with. Like we always say it's Josh's fault, you know, in our Buckleheads group, because he's gotten probably a dozen of us into ultra running at this point. But seeing him, like what he went through to be there, you know, and just Jonathan sacrificing potentially his summit, which thankfully he finished.
Yeah.
You know, I would have felt pretty bad if he would have not finished that.
Yeah.
And like, was it my 16 miles that you paced me? Did that do you in? But, you know, he finished, and you know, I cry like a baby all the time in these races, so I just let it go. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
Let her rip.
It was pretty powerful. The only thing that really kind of stunk was my family wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I FaceTimed them right away, and I was on the live stream. I was, you know, they were all following, so it was awesome.
Yeah. So Andrea, how did you that get into that last mile? How did that feel?
It was pretty awesome to, you know, you think about, oh man, I got this one last time, but I was telling my friend Danielle and Lily, my daughter, as we were going up, I was like, this feels like an out of body experience. Like I am watching myself go up this hill. It doesn't feel real. And so you try to just take it in, because it was, like Devin said, like everybody's trying to get to the finish line to cheer you on. And just the community is incredible because, you know, everybody is out there cheering you on. The volunteers are phenomenal. Like they are meeting you as you come into aid stations, and you saw them at the aid station. I see them at the finish line, and the cross-dot line with Lily and then my son Mac holding hands, and you know, Devin and all my friends being there to cheer me on, and the Bucklehead group. It was pretty incredible to get it done, and what an amazing experience.
Yeah. And you know, and when you cross that finish line, you get the buckle, and people are like, oh, what's the deal with the buckle? You keep the buckle. I said, yeah, the buckle, that's a fine buckle. I got to go back and get one. But
you are going back. You're going to get that.
I'm going to get that buckle. So, but like it represents, you know, it's what it represents, because I look at the buckles I have on, you know, on a case here, and every single one of them, like it represents a time of training, of pushing myself, and then that struggle. And I mean, we talked about, and I'm sure there are many other stories. There are so many stories when you look at that High Lonesome buckle. it brings back, and like you earned that, you know, like you guys, you had help, you had some people, but like you did it. Like you earned it. You did those climbs. Devin, you did that climb, dude. You got out of that Cottonwood aid station and climbed 850 feet back up to Laws Pass. You did that. And so and both of you, you know, and so you earned that. And so that it's, and all that is encapsulated in there, you know? And so, man, congratulations to both of you. Like that kudos, man. That is a tough race. That is a tough race, and you guys, you completed it. You got it done. And so, as Flatlanders, man, you did it.
We were the only Kansas runners there, Andrea.
Yeah.
There was no one else from Kansas that was in that race.
Nice.
So, I mean, the memories that are made, like that was one thing that I would say, like, to think of. Don't get consumed with the miles. Think about the memories that you're getting to make with others. And uninterrupted time that I had with friends and my husband, just like out in the wilderness, just, you know, trudging along. But I mean, just no phones, just having conversation. Amazing memories are made.
That's good stuff. Well, so, you know, I guess the last question I would ask both of you, if you could do one thing differently, or if somebody you know, gets in, what's the biggest thing that you would tell them, either to prepare them or whatever, about this race to get them ready to run it? So I guess that's might be two different things, might be the same. I don't know. I'll let you go first, Andrea.
Oh man, the pressure.
Yeah.
I would say that, you know, getting in the race, the amount of like material prep and things like that are provided by Caleb and his team are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Read it all.
Yeah.
Because that information really does give you a great sense of what you're preparing to do. Nutrition, it's so important to practice nutrition, because it really can break you if you don't. And I felt it.
It did.
A lot.
Devin said it did. It did.
That like just being at that altitude for such a period of time, like you got to try to like mix it up a little bit. And then I would say like strength training. I don't think that if I wouldn't have focused on that strength training, I don't know that my body would have recovered as well.
Yeah.
From the amount of like climbing. It's just, when you think you're done climbing, you're going to climb some more.
That's it. Yeah. Devin, what about you, man?
Yeah, it's as a Flatlander going into this, you can think that you're going to prepare for the altitude, but, you know, really just go into it as fit as possible. Like, increase your VO2 max as much as you can, you know, focus on nutrition, try not, you know, just go in as fit as you can. For me, I hit the sauna a lot too, the steam sauna, and that really helped. I would run in it started getting hot here by middle of May, and it's hot now. It's like 100 degrees today. But just like running in the heat so that you kind of know, because it's not as hot there, but you're just simply closer to the sun.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and other than that, like, you should probably, I don't know, focus on nutrition, like, while you're running too, and don't just like abandon everything you've been training with like I did, because I use Ultraverse and everything, and then I did not bring it with me.
Yeah.
And it almost cost me, but yeah. And then just know why you're there. Like, for me, this was my dream race when I started running. Now, you know, I have 2 tickets for Western States. You know, I think you got in with 2 tickets, didn't you?
I did. Yep.
Oh, so you're saying there's a chance.
You're telling me there's a chance. Yes.
Just know why you're there, prepare for it, and just be ready to dig, because it's coming no matter what. Like, I finished a few of these now, and I don't know anything. I'm always finishing like near the end of the back of the pack, but I'm never going to quit. So, because I know what quitting feels like, and it sucks.
It does. It does. Well, guys, it was awesome to get to share part of the journey with you guys, and thank you so much for jumping on the podcast and sharing. Hopefully, people who get into High Lonesome in the future will listen and they can get a little information, and we don't scare them too bad. But thanks a bunch. Thanks for taking your time, and once again, congratulations.